Hi, future editing spooky here, coming in from a fucking headset microphone, so this might sound fun. But a lot of people are confused as to what was exactly released last week or this week. People think it's a client list, it's a bunch of names that were associated and had underage things with minors and stuff like that. That's not what was released. What was released was a 2017 already closed and settled defamation lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell from one of the former minors. Although I do see the memes of like Stephen Hawking being listed here, the only time his name comes up is through an email from Jeffrey Epstein himself, and the email was saying like to prove that Stephen Hawking did not participate in an underage thing, right? So, yes, his name did come up, but it was to disprove that he was doing the things that people think that he did, straight from the dude who did it. So, it's just things like that. Yeah, so there was no client list that was dropped. There was no list of names that are immediately associated with blah, blah, blah. That's not what was dropped. It was a document that was already out. It was just unsealed with 170 names unredacted.
So the death of Jeffrey Epstein is one that is shrouded in mystery as well as conspiracy. If you've been living under a fucking rock, then you wouldn't have known that the meme Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself or Epstein didn't kill himself has been circulating the internet for the past 4 years now, well, 3.5, since his suicide on August 10th, 2019. That was 4 years ago. I'm dumb. Whatever. Hey guys, how you guys doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Real quick before we get into it, camera quality is fantastic, right? I know. The mic isn't. It's because I don't have anything. Look around. This is my living room. I'm literally recording in my living room. As you may have known, where I've been for the past 4 months is I've been moving literally across the planet from Japan to Tacoma, Washington. Yeah, that's where I've been. So I apologize for being gone for so long, but I'm back now. So let's get into this thing, huh? So let's get into a roadmap of what this video is going to look like, okay? Because it's going to be quite long. So the first part of this video is going to be Jeffrey Epstein's suicide, his charges and all of his things that come later. But first of all, we're going to talk about his suicide. What is the what brought this case to the public eye? Why is it such a conspiracy? That's what we're going to talk about first, his suicide and the mysteriousness surrounding his suicide, okay? And then after that, we're going to go into his official indictment, okay? His indictment is all the charges that he's been charged with, things that are read in court. Basically, it's like a formal, hey, this is what your crimes are, this is what your charges are, this is what you're going to court for. That's what an indictment is, from my understanding. I'm not a lawyer, okay? I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding of an indictment. For the second part of this video, we're gonna go over some of the Ghislaine Maxwell recently released unsealed files that were, released. I believe they did one batch every day for 7 days. And the latest batch that was released today is about 1,000 pages, give or take. And in total, all 7 batches, from my understanding, I think I have all 7 batches right here, is 2,024 pages. And the reason I said some is because I haven't read all 2,024 pages. And let me let you in on a little secret in case you don't want to read anything of this. I want to go to a random page here. So page 1228 you have to pay attention because it's going to get very confusing. Page 1,228 in the actual file, okay, in the actual released documents. Page 1,228 is page 107 of this. It looks like it's an interview of some sort, okay? Let's scroll down a little bit. Oh, looks like it doesn't do it for this. It doesn't do it for this one because this isn't Ghislaine Maxwell. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. A little fishy there. So what I'm trying to get at is, there is a part in this document that has a Ghislaine Maxwell Q&A with, I think it's investigators. And like I said, like page 18 of the interview, because it's like over 115 pages, the interview itself is 118 pages. Let's say that falls on page 1. Page 1 equals page 1, right? Page 3 will equal page like 74. Page 12 will equal page 90. Like, it's so scrambled up in there. I don't know if that's just a fuck up with the way they fax the document in or scan the document in. I really don't know. But I'm looking at somebody that's named David Rogers, his interview right here. And it looks like it's all in chronological order. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting very excited. Something else key to take away from this is there is a lot of pages in the Epstein documents right here that were recently released that is just straight up medical. It's medical records, it's maintenance records for the houses, it's flight logs. And by the way, the flight logs, let me let you in on a little secret. Just because they went on the flight logs does not mean that they went onto the island or the Palm Beach residence or the New York residence. So yeah, this I know that you're confused right now. I'm just as confused as you. It's so jumbled up, but then again, it's 2,024 pages of information dropped in the last week. So this second half of this video is gonna be insane. Sorry for that long ass introduction, but now we're gonna start off with the death of Jeffrey Epstein. So if you don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is, we're gonna start from the very, very beginning. Jeffrey Epstein was a New York financier, okay? And he is accused, or was accused, of sexually abusing minors in 3 different residences. It's called the Palm Beach residence, which is referred to in the court documents. I'm using the lingo and the names in the court documents. We'll go over that as well. There is 3 different residences. There is the island that everybody knows. There is the Palm Beach residence, and then there is the New York residence. And traveling between those, he had a private jet called the Lolita Express. So the Lolita Express, whenever you hear the flight logs, like, oh, their name is on the flight logs, the flight logs is just anybody who used the Lolita Express. It's not everybody that went from A to B, or like from A to the island, the New York residence. It's just people that used the flight logs. I also want to make it clear that this video, I'm going to use just the facts that are in front of me. I'm not going to use anything from my head. I'm not going to try and push my personal bias onto you. I'm not going to say that he didn't kill himself. I'm going to let you formulate your own opinion while I state the facts. And if it doesn't make sense, it just straight up doesn't make sense on here. But I will try to explain to you as much as I can as we go through it. So on July 6th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was formally arrested for multiple counts, including sex trafficking and sexual abuse of minors. And on July 18th, he filed for bail, and it was immediately shot down. They were like, no, the fuck, you're not going nowhere. You are staying right here, and you are facing 40 years in federal prison for child sex trafficking and child sexual abuse. So in 12 days, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, tried to get out of prison, and they're like, nope, you're not fucking going anywhere, dude. You're gonna sit your ass right there on that bed, and you're gonna eat your churro. I'm not sure if he ate churros, but he probably does. He looks like he enjoys churros, that fucking guy. So when he filed for bail, he didn't have a bail yet, basically. From what I understand, he didn't have a bail amount set. So 12 days after he got arrested, he offered the court system $600,000 in order to be put on house arrest. So he was gonna wear an ankle monitor at his New York residence. And the court was like, are you insane? You took 20 international flights in the last 18 months alone. You are a flight risk. We're not letting you out of our goddamn sight. So on July 18th, his bail was shot down. And on July 23rd, Jeffrey Epstein tried to commit suicide. Yes, he tried to commit suicide a couple weeks before he actually committed suicide. So let me break this down for you. At 1:23 a.m., the prison guards found him semi-conscious in his jail cell with bruises around his neck and what looked like a half-assed noose tied to his bunk, or the ladder of his bunk. And the only reason they responded is because the cellmate, started yelling for help. And when Jeffrey Epstein was finally brought back, like fully conscious, he said, no, my cellmate tried to kill me. But when they interviewed the cellmate, they're like, why would I try to kill him and then also scream for help? You know, so that didn't make sense. And then later on, when Jeffrey Epstein, like a couple days later, he's like, I don't actually know what happened. I don't remember. Does that make sense? See, I told you, this shit just does not make sense at all. So after that incident, Jeffrey Epstein was put into another cell. Kepri, stop yelling at me. Stop. Okay, come here. Yep, say hi. Hi, everyone. He did not like that fucking flight. That was like a 13-hour flight. He did not like that. So after that incident, he was moved to a suicide watch, where he was surrounded by windows and guards. He was everything from the room that would be potentially used as a way to kill himself. He was placed in that room for 6 days. After 6 days, he had a psychological checkup, and they recommended that he be taken off of suicide watch. So after that, they took him out of there and put him into another special housing unit, or a SHU. And in there, he was placed in another cell with another cellmate to make sure, you know, he doesn't kill himself, or he'd be at least deterred from killing himself. On August 8th, Jeffrey Epstein signed his last will and testament, naming 2 of his closest employees in his will. And for some of his shit, I don't know exactly how much. It doesn't really say. Some of his assets were given to them, but the rest of his estate was given to a trust. And also, he took a 15-minute phone call. And when guards were like, hey, who did you call? He's like, oh, I was on the phone with my mom. His mom has been dead for 15 years at that point. But no one questioned it, I guess, because they can't find anything else on it. So they were just like, oh, okay, you're crazy. That's cool. Awesome. Great. Anyway, fuck off. This is where things get a little wonky. This is where the conspiracy really takes place, is right here, okay? In this next 3 or 4 minutes that I'm going to take, okay? On August 9th, Jeffrey Epstein's cellmate was removed and transferred to another cell, leaving Jeffrey Epstein completely alone. On top of that, they did not take any of the sheets from that bunk bed, okay? From the cellie's bunk, they didn't take any of the sheets away. And if you remember, every 30 minutes he is supposed to be checked up on, okay? Every 30 minutes. 10 o'clock rolls around, they check up on him as normal, write it in their little logbook, right? The guards write it in their little logbook. 10:30, they wrote it in their logbook that they checked on him. 11, wrote it in the logbook. 11:30, wrote it in the logbook. They didn't do any of that. They falsified documents saying that they did. You know what they were doing in reality? Sleeping. They fell asleep at the guard desk. That was 15 feet away. Granted, it was up a flight of stairs and through a locked gate, but still they falsified documents saying that they actually did check up on Jeffrey Epstein, who was on suicide watch, who's also the #1 predator on the news right now at the time, okay? But they said, fuck it, okay? We don't need to do that. The last time they actually checked up on Jeffrey Epstein was 10 o'clock. 10:30, the guard just kind of walked by his cell. Didn't even look in it, just walked by it. And that was the last time anybody has seen Jeffrey Epstein alive. Oh, but Spooky, there's a prison, there must be CCTVs, there must be security cameras, right? Oh yes, there was. There was 2 pointed directly at his cell. Those were malfunctioning. They just didn't capture anything. They were broken. So the CCTV footage is non-existent because the 2 cameras that just so happened to be pointing at this cell did not work. Now you know what the conspiracy is. Oh, on top of that, there was another CCTV camera pointed down that area, but unfortunately, I'm going to quote this, another camera had footage that was unusable. Remember, I'm not making any of this shit up. This is actual, like, I pulled this from like 4 different websites. I'm not making this shit up. This is fact. So the last time anybody saw Jeffrey Epstein alive was at 10 p.m. Confirmed, actually confirmed. And at 6:30 p.m. when they went to check on him, he was unresponsive, in cardiac arrest, on his knees with an orange jumpsuit or orange shirt, orange bed sheet. It was orange. I saw the picture of the thing that he used to hang himself. It was orange. It looked like a sheet. But he was on his knees in the kneeling position, and he had tied the noose, I guess, to his bunk up top and just hung himself like that. Another thing that's kind of fishy that I didn't even know this is they removed his body after finding him dead. Well, they of course conducted CPR, tried to bring him back, but they removed his body from the murder scene, right? Or the death scene. That is strictly against, I think it was their prison code. Anytime a dead body is found, it is supposed to be treated as an active crime scene until it is deemed not, okay? They didn't even take pictures of the body. They just straight up took his body, removed it from the cell. There is no pictures of Jeffrey Epstein's body. Like, I'm not saying like I wanted to see it, but anywhere. In fucking evidence files, police reports, none of those places have a picture of Jeffrey Epstein's body in the position of death, which is insane. That is insane. I will read exactly what they did, quote unquote. The removal of Epstein's body from his cell was a violation of protocol, as the Bureau of Prisons, or the BOP, mandates that a suicide scene is treated with the same level of protection as any crime scene in which a death has occurred. Consequently, the prison personnel also failed to photograph Epstein's body as it was found. And I know a lot of you are probably like, Spooky, dude's a chomo. He's dead. Why are you upset? This is where the conspiracy is. This is the meme. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. The way that everything is set up, the way that he committed suicide, it does not look like a suicide. It looked like he was murdered. Now, who would want to murder a very powerful person with very powerful friends, who is convicted of sex trafficking, who possibly has ties to elite people, like we're going to go over in a little bit? Why? I don't know what else to say. That's about it without me. I'm just going to say it. Jeffrey Epstein might have had information about having a sexual trafficking ring with elite people. Like very elite people, household names would have been linked to Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes. He, being the kind of guy that he was, more than likely would have spilt some names in order for a lesser prison sentence. But the people didn't like that, right? So what they do? But again, that's all a conspiracy. That is all a conspiracy that is not based on fact nor fiction. Nothing. That's just a conspiracy theory going around. So don't listen to anything I have to say. Moving on. So this part we're going to go over is the autopsy. This is the last part I'm going to talk about when it comes to his suicide, and then we're going to get into his court documents, okay? So his suicide, I'm going to read you the first paragraph of this autopsy. This is from Wikipedia, and I know a lot of you are like, my teacher told me not to use Wikipedia. Fuck that, okay? I vetted this against multiple reporting agencies such as Independent, NPR, CNN, Fox News, ABC, BBC, CNN. I don't know if I said CNN already. I went through a bunch of different websites to try and get the most consistent information. And Wikipedia is consistent with all of them. It's just worded a little better. That's why I'm using this Wikipedia instead of any of the other news sites that I just said. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this to you word for word. And I want you to listen. On August 16th, Sampson, who is the New York City chief medical examiner who did the autopsy. If you don't know what an autopsy is, basically an autopsy is when somebody takes a look at a dead body and they're like, okay, this is how they died. This is how long ago they did die. And if it was a murder, they could be able to be like, oh, there are actual scratch marks here with DNA on them. Like, here, take the DNA. They do that kind of stuff. So that's who Sampson is. So let me continue. On August 16th, Sampson announced that Epstein's death had been ruled suicide by hanging. Later, conflicting reports said the injuries Epstein sustained were consistent of, if not more so, with strangulation or homicide, as with suicide. Sampson's report found that there was no foul play in his death. 3 of Epstein's lawyers expressed their dissatisfaction with Sampson's conclusion, having hired forensic pathologist Michael Baden to observe the autopsy. They said they would initiate their own investigation and provide a more detailed statement in the future. Why is my cat's meowing like a motherfucker right now? Baden observed Sampson's autopsy when it was conducted. After the autopsy, he said he could not comment because of gag orders filed by Sampson's office and Epstein's estate. A gag order is an order, typically legal order by a court or government, restricting information or comment from being made public or passed on onto any unauthorized third party. I don't know, man. I'm just an investigator. That's all I am. I'm an investigator, researcher. I'm not an autopsy person. I'm not a police detective. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. But when you see a fucking helicopter in a tree, you just know something's fucked up. Anyway, that's it for his suicide. And that's the conspiracy. So let's get into the actual court documents and his indictment, the charges that was filed against him. Let's get into that. So what I have in front of me right now is the actual sealed indictment from the United States District Court, Southern District of New York. So this is every charge that he's being charged with. So in this document right here, he's being charged with 2 counts of sexual trafficking. So I have this document as well as all the other documents that I'm going to be referencing, including the newest batches of documents down in the description below. It's gonna be in a paste bin. Just look for the references link and click on that link. And that link will take you to a page, and that page will have all of the links to every single one of these documents if you want to read them for yourself. They're all free. Don't worry about it. They're not hiding behind a fucking paywall. You can go ahead and read them for yourself for your own research purposes. How this is going to work, how I'm going to actually go over this indictment, is I'm going to read it word for word, because it's very important, especially in like the court system and in terms for this video, that everyone understands what he's being charged with. Now, because I'm reading it word for word, I need to let you guys know that this is going to be graphic. There are things in here that are extremely detailed, but not detailed to the extent that it explains a lot of like really like graphic detail. There is a lot of detail, but it's not super graphic. So with that being said, if you need to step away from the video or you need to step away from the video for a little bit, go ahead and do that. I totally understand. This is very heavy shit that we're going to talk about right here. And also, I'm going to put the document up on screen, at least the paragraph that I'm reading, so that everyone can know what I'm talking about and read along with me if you want to, or if you want to just listen, you can go ahead and do that. So we're going to start off with count 1, the sex trafficking conspiracy. The grand jury charges, and this is an overview of count 1, sex trafficking conspiracy. As set forth herein, over the course of many years, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, sexually exploited and abused dozens of minor girls in his home in Manhattan, New York, and Palm Beach, Florida, among other locations. In particular, from at least in about 2002 up to and including at least in or about 2005, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, enticed, recruited, and caused to be enticed and recruited minor girls to visit his mansion in Manhattan, New York, or the New York residence, and his estate in Palm Beach, Florida, the Palm Beach residence, to engage in sex acts with him, after which he would give the victims hundreds of dollars in cash. Moreover, and in order to maintain and increase his supply of victims, Epstein also pays certain of his victims to recruit additional girls to similarly be abused by Epstein. In this way, Epstein created a vast network of underage victims for him to sexually exploit in locations including New York and Palm Beach. So what that's basically saying is that Jeffrey Epstein is being charged with sexually abusing minors. On top of that, giving them hundreds of dollars in cash, and then taking some of them and having them recruit other minor girls to also be abused by Jeffrey Epstein. And on top of that, recruiting those girls to recruit more. So it's basically saying that he took girls and then had them recruit girls and then had them recruit girls, and he had just an ever-flowing, for lack of a better term, like new minors to abuse. So that's basically what that's saying, that he recruited and also sexually abused minor girls. So moving on. The victims described herein were as young as 14 years old at the time that they were abused by Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, and were, for various reasons, often particularly vulnerable to exploitation. Epstein intentionally sought out minors and knew many of his victims were in fact under the age of 18, including because in some instances, minor victims expressly told them their age. So what that means, I don't think I need to explain it, but I'm going to. He knew exactly how old they were. How? Because they told him how old they were. Moving on. In creating and maintaining this network of minor victims in multiple states to sexually abuse and exploit, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, worked and conspired with others, including employees and associates who facilitated his conduct, among other things, contacting victims and scheduling their sexual encounters with Epstein at the New York residence and Palm Beach residences. Not only would he go and seek out these girls and had them recruit them, he would often call them and basically schedule fucking appointments. That's what that's saying. So now we're moving on to the factual background. That's this section of the document is. This is the factual background. During all time periods charged in this indictment, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, was a financier with multiple residences in the continental United States, including the New York residence and the Palm Beach residence. Beginning in at least 2002, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, enticed, recruited, and caused to be enticed and recruited dozens of minor girls to engage in sex acts with him, after which Epstein paid the victims hundreds of dollars in cash at the New York residence and Palm Beach residence. I'm not sure if I said it at the beginning, but a lot of this is just redundant. They say the same thing again just to get it across that this is what he did. A lot of the redundancy also comes because he did the same thing to multiple minors. So they'll have like the same paragraph, but then the names will be minor 1, minor 2, minor 3, you know, and that's why it's so redundant, because he did the same thing to multiple people, and they need to list that in that indictment, or in this indictment. They need to list, this is what he did to minor number 1. He did the same thing to minor number 2, but we need to say it again. That's why a lot of this is saying the same thing, because he did the same thing to multiple people. Moving on. Both New York and Florida, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, perpetuated this abuse in similar ways. Victims were initially recruited to provide massages to Epstein, which would be performed nude or partially nude, would become increasingly sexual in nature, and would typically include one or more sex acts. Like I said, this is going to get very graphic. So this is the part of the documents where if you need to, go ahead and take a break, or you can exit from this video completely. But we're gonna keep on pushing forward. I'll be here if you ever want to come back and finish the video or unpause it. So let's keep going. Epstein paid his victims hundreds of dollars in cash for each encounter. Moreover, Epstein actively encouraged certain of his victims to recruit additional girls to be similarly sexually abused. Epstein incentivized his victims to become recruiters by paying these victim recruiters hundreds of dollars for each girl that they brought to Epstein. In so doing, Epstein maintained a steady supply of new victims to exploit. So like it said in the previous paragraph, he recruited other girls, and in turn they would bring in girls, and he would make those girls recruiters, and he would just keep expanding that way, and he would pay them hundreds of dollars every girl, every time. So this next part is the New York residence. So everything I'm about to say took place in the New York residence. It separates it into the Palm Beach residence as well, but this is just the New York residence. At all times relevant to this indictment, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, possessed and controlled a multi-story private residence on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, New York, i.e. the New York residence. Between at least in or about 2002 and in or about 2005, Epstein abused numerous minor victims at the New York residence by causing these victims to be recruited and engaged in paid sex acts with him. When a victim arrived at the New York residence, she typically would be escorted to a room with a massage table, where she would perform massage on Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant. The victims, who were as young as 14 years of age, were told by Epstein or other individuals to partially or fully undress before beginning the massage. During the encounter, Epstein would escalate the nature of the scope of physical contact with his victim to include, among other things, sex acts such as groping and indirect or direct contact with the victim's genitals. Epstein typically would also masturbate during these sexual encounters, ask victims to touch him while he masturbated, and touch victims' genitals with his hands or with sex toys. In connection with each sexual encounter, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, or one of his employees or associates, paid the victims cash. Victims typically were paid hundreds of dollars in cash for each encounter. Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, knew that many of his New York victims were underage, including certain victims told him their age. Furthermore, once these minor victims were recruited, many were abused by Epstein on multiple subsequent occasions at the New York residence. Epstein sometimes personally contacted the victims to schedule appointments at the New York residence. In other instances, Epstein directed employees and associates, including the New York-based employee or employee number 1, to communicate with victims via phone to arrange for these victims to return to the New York residence for additional sexual encounters with Epstein. Those paragraphs just kind of detailed what he did and how he sexually abused them, on top of saying how he recruited or how he scheduled appointments. He would do it personally, or he'd have one of his fucking associates do it. That's basically what that said. Additionally, and to further facilitate his ability to abuse minor girls in New York, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, asked and enticed certain of his victims to recruit additional girls to perform massages and similarly engage in sex acts with Epstein. When a victim would recruit another girl for Epstein, he paid both the victim recruiter and the new victim hundreds of dollars in cash. Though these victims recruiters, Epstein gained access, or through these victims recruiters, Epstein gained access to and was able to abuse dozens of additional minor girls. Dozens, dude. Not 4 or 5, fucking dozens. In particular, certain recruiters brought dozens of additional minor girls to the New York residence to give massages to and engage in sex acts with Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant. Epstein encouraged victims to recruit additional girls by offering to pay these victim recruiters for every additional girl they brought to Epstein. When a victim recruiter accompanied a new minor victim to New York residence, both the victim recruiter and the new minor victim were paid hundreds of dollars in cash by Epstein for each encounter. In addition, certain victim recruiters routinely scheduled these encounters through employee number 1, who sometimes asked recruiters to bring a specific minor girl for Epstein. So that is it for the New York residence. Now we're going to go into the Palm Beach residence, which, if you know, he had all these different properties, but these were just the ones at a New York residence in Manhattan and a Florida residence in Palm Beach. So this is the Palm Beach residence. In addition to recruiting and abusing minor girls in New York, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, created a similar network of minor girls to victimize in Palm Beach, Florida, where Epstein owned, possessed, and controlled another large residence, i.e. the Palm Beach residence. Epstein frequently traveled from New York to Palm Beach by private jet, or the Lolita Express, what we talked about before which an employee or associate would ensure that the minor victims were available for encounters upon his arrival in Florida. So what that said right there, that last bit of information, what that said is that not only did he abuse girls in Florida, he would also schedule appointments before he even got to fucking Florida. And he would have these girls waiting for him at the house in fucking Florida. At the Palm Beach residence, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, engaged in a similar course of abusive conduct. When a victim initially arrived at the Palm Beach residence, she would be escorted to a room supplied by an employee of Epstein's, including at times 2 assistants, employee number 2 and employee number 3, so a different one from the one in the New York residence, who, as described herein, were also responsible for scheduling sexual encounters with minor victims. Once inside, the victim would provide a nude or semi-nude massage for Epstein, who would typically himself be naked. Again, detailed exactly what they did, what he did, which is also included in the New York residence. If you forgive me, I would prefer not to read that because I just wouldn't. So he did the same thing he did at the New York residence at the Palm Beach residence, just in a different location. And the rest of the Palm Beach residence is just redundant to the New York residence. So it's saying the same thing, but it's relisting it because it happened to other girls, other minors. The same things that happened in New York also happened in Florida. But since this is a different place with different minors and different people, they listed it again. So the same last part or last bit of information from the New York residence is also listed here in the Palm Beach residence. So I'm going to stop reading the Palm Beach residence because it's just redundant. It's the same thing as being said in the New York residence. So let's move on. So this next section is called statutory allegations. From at least in or about 2002 up to and including in or about 2005, the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, and others known and unknown willfully and knowingly did combine, conspire, confederate, and agree together and with each other to commit an offense against the United States, to wit, sex trafficking of minors in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 1591 A and B. First of all, I want to fucking apologize for stuttering right there. It's just the way that this is written. It's just a lot of words just that I don't talk like this. So this is a lot of words right next to each other that I just don't use. So it confused me. But second part is Title 18 United States Code Section 1591. So that is the title of the United States Code and the section of the title in the United States Code, obviously, that says that sex trafficking of minors is illegal, and it lists it in the fucking code of the United States. So that's what Section 1591 is in the United States Code. It's just like sexual trafficking of minors. So it details what sex trafficking of minors is and what the violations are. So that's what that is. If you want to go ahead and look it up, I'm also going to put that down in the description below in the paste bin, but that's what that means. So let's move on. Oh, I'm sorry. So basically what that paragraph means is that not only did Jeffrey Epstein did, but right here where it says, and others known and unknown, that means other people also partook in this. That means it wasn't just Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, and others known and unknown. So others known, like they know who it is, and unknown, they don't know who it is. So they know people that are associated with Jeffrey Epstein. It says it right here in the court documents. It's just you got to read between the lines. They know other people. And they also know that they don't know people that also did it. So there is an untold amount of people that also willingly partook in this. So that's also something that's kind of hidden in there that I just figured I'd let you know about. It was part and object to the conspiracy that Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, and others known and unknown, again, not just Jeffrey Epstein, other people as well, would and did, in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, and obtain by any means a person, and to benefit financially and by receiving anything of value from participation in a venture which has engaged in any such act, knowing that the person had not attained the age of 18 and would be caused to engage in a commercial sex act in violation of Title 18 United States Code Sections 1591 A and B 2. What that means is that they shipped girls all around the world for this. Like in and out of the United States, in and out of Mexico, or wherever. I don't want to just say Mexico, but anywhere in the world. They knowingly and willingly committed sex abuse and sex trafficking across the planet. That's what that's saying. So the next section is overt acts. Now I know that I've read this document already. I know that this part lists the exact same thing 3 different times because it happens to 3 different people. So I'm going to read the entirety and summarize it, and then just it keeps going more because it happened to more people. So I'm going to summarize overt acts as best as I can. So this is overt acts. In furtherance to the conspiracy and to effect the illegal object thereof, the following overt acts, among others, were committed in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. So again, this doesn't just happen in New York. This happened at the Palm Beach residence and multiple other locations. In or about 2004, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, enticed, recruited multiple minor victims, including minor victims identified herein as minor victim number 1, minor victim number 2, and minor victim number 3, to engage in sex acts with Epstein at his residences in Manhattan, New York, and Palm Beach, Florida, after which he provided them with hundreds of dollars in cash for each encounter. In or about 2002, minor victim 1 was recruited to engage in sex acts with Epstein and was repeatedly sexually abused by Epstein at the New York residence over a period of years and was paid hundreds of dollars for each encounter. Epstein also encouraged and enticed minor victim number 1 to recruit other girls to engage in paid sex acts with him, which she did. Epstein asked minor victim 1 how old she was, and minor victim 1 answered truthfully. In or about 2004, employee number 1, located in the Southern District of New York and in behalf of Epstein, placed a telephone call to minor victim number 1 in order to schedule an appointment for minor victim number 1 to engage in paid sex acts with Epstein. And then it repeats that 2 more times for minor victim number 2 and minor victim number 3. And it takes place, I believe, minor victim number 1 takes place in 2002, minor victim number 2 in 2004, and minor victim number 3 in 2005. And then we go into the second count, count 2, which is sex trafficking. So the first count, if I believe, was sex trafficking conspiracy. Yep, was conspiracy to sex traffic. And count 2 is sex trafficking. The grand jury further charges the allegations contained in paragraph 1 through 19 and 22 in this indictment are repeated and realleged as fully set forth within. So basically what that paragraph just means is that everything I just said is also applying to count 2. That's what that means. So now that you know that, let's keep going. From at least in or about 2002 up to and including in or about 2005, the Southern District of New York, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, willfully and knowingly in and affecting interstate foreign commerce, did recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, and obtain by any means a person knowing that the person had not attained the age of 18 years and would be caused to engage in commercial sex act, and did aid and abet the same, to wit, Epstein recruited, enticed, and harbored, transported, and provided and obtained numerous individuals who were less than 18 years old, including but not limited to minor victim number 1 as described above, who were then caused to engage in at least one commercial sex act in Manhattan, New York. If you remember count 1, it's all conspiracy. Like, yeah, you might have done this, right? It's basically what that says. Count 2 is like, no, you fucking did this. And if you remember in count 2, the first thing it says is like, yeah, everything in count 1, we're putting it here too. Fuck you. So basically what they're saying is you had the idea and conspiracy to do these things. You had the idea and thought to do this. You had plans. You had everything lined up to do this thing. Count 2 is you did this thing. It's beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that you did this thing. That's the difference between count 1 and count 2. And the next part of this is the forfeiture allegations. So basically, I'm not going to read this whole thing because there's a lot of words that it just confuses me. But I tried to read it. I read it like 4 times. Basically, it's just forfeiture of both the Palm Beach residents as well as the New York residents and any other residents that could be used as any other residents that might have. Jesus Christ. Did you see that? That scared the fuck out of me. Any residents that might have been used in this investigation is forfeited to the United States government. So that's it for the court documents, the sealed indictment. Again, this is all listed down below in the references link if you want to go ahead and look at that. But there's nothing really else to explain. It's kind of self-explanatory. So with that being said, let's get into what everyone here is for, which is the newest documents that were released in total of 2,024 pages. Like I said, I didn't go over the whole thing. I went over a little bit. I went over some of the names that were in here, and we're gonna go over it a little bit, just a little bit. I'm gonna tell you what's in them and not what they say. I'll make that deal because I can do that. I can tell you what's in them, or I can't tell you what's in them specifically, but I'm going to tell you what they contain. So, first of all, what you need to understand is this is a bunch of documents that have already been released. All of these things were a part of a defamation lawsuit from Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell, which is Jeffrey Epstein's number 2. So this already took place and was settled in 2017. The reason it's such a big deal is because in 2017, when these were released, or when they were released initially, I'm not sure if it was in 2017 or not, they had a bunch of unredacted names, 170 of them, I believe, and they were redacted. And literally 2 weeks ago, I heard about this. A court judge ordered that these documents be unsealed, unredacting the names of these people. So that's what we got. We got the court documents just unsealed. So now there's a bunch of names on here. But please keep in mind, there are some names that are redacted on here. The reason some of these names are redacted is because some of them are still minors. Like they're still under the age of 18. That's why some names on here are redacted. It's not because, oh, they're trying to keep these names away from us. Oh, I wonder who this is. No, it's literally a minor. That's why it's redacted. So, yeah. We are going to go over the newest batches of information that was recently dropped throughout the week. Like I said, these documents have over 2,024 pages. And what I also think that I mentioned is that this is not new. This has been a thing and done since 2017. The reason it's made such a comeback recently is because a judge recently ordered that it needs to be unsealed. Now, what it means to be unsealed is that all the names that are listed in here have to become unredacted. That means all of the people in here are just out there. There are names here now. I believe there are 170 different names in these 2024 different pages. That comes with an asterisk, and I'll explain that later. But if you do read the document, you'll notice that some names are still redacted, and there is a reason for that. The reason some of these names are still redacted is because they are still minors. They're still under the age of 18. And obviously, we don't want their names to get out for privacy reasons, right? They're still under the age of 18, so they were victims. So that's why some of the names are still redacted. Without further ado, though, I'm going to try and explain what's on these documents because it would be pointless for me to read a lot of this because, well, I'll tell you in a second. Like I said, a lot of this is medical documents, and it's not even for Jeffrey Epstein. It's for one of the minors. And her name is unredacted on here, but I just don't feel comfortable saying her name because I believe she needs privacy, you know, she was a fucking victim. This is from 2001, and it's from the New York Presbyterian Hospital, a New York, Colonel Medical Center. And it's just pages on pages on pages of just like hospital visits, STD tests, and stuff like that. Like I said, this is from 2001. Like right here, received date, July 9th, 2001. Cell date, July 9th, 2001. Reception date, July 10th, 2001. Reception time, 0638. And it's just a bunch of, like I said, this is all medical documents. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. So I'm not gonna sit here and try and explain it to you. But that's what a lot of this is just documents like that, like medical documents. Let's see if I can find another one. Yes, this one right here is a police incident report, and I'm going to read an entire police report to you because it's not much. It's narrative 32 on page 1632 of the document. So page 1632 of the document from January 3rd, 2006. On March 31st, 2005, at approximately 1500 hours, while conducting surveillance at 358 El Brio, I observed a black Cadillac Escalade, unknown tag, a black Chevrolet Suburban, unknown tag, a black Mercedes S600F Florida tag, parked in the east driveway next to the 3-car garage. There was a tan Honda Civic Florida tag, and of course those are redacted because those are license plate numbers, parked on the street in front of the residence. At approximately 1700 hours, I observed the black Suburban, black Escalade, and black Mercedes and tan Honda Civic parked in the same place. At 1750, there was no change in vehicles. At 1840, so the first time was 3 o'clock. The second time was 5 o'clock. The third time he went back was 5:50, and now it's 6:40. So at 1840, 6:40. At 1840 hours, I observed the black Escalade, black Suburban, and black Mercedes, along with the silver Hyundai accent Florida tag redacted, all parked in the east driveway, and a red Ford Explorer Florida tag redacted, parked on the street in front of the residence. At 2000 hours, or 8 o'clock, I observed the black Escalade, black Suburban parked in the east driveway, and the red Explorer and the tan Civic parked in the street. On Friday, May 1st, 2005, at approximately 1700 hours, I observed the black Escalade and the black Suburban parked in the east driveway, and the tan Honda Civic parked in the street in front of the residence. At 1820 hours, I observed the Suburban Civic in the same place and the gold Chevrolet Camaro Florida tag, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just gonna read this and summarize it. Cool. So basically what this whole police report is, I don't know if I skipped it or not, but I just read the entire police report, or this case number. What this is an observation report. So this is literally people watching the house, seeing who comes in, who goes out, and what cars are parked there. I'm guessing the Palm Beach. So this is at the Palm Beach residence in 2006. But this surveillance took place in 2005, right? Yeah, 2005. So this is just a bunch of reports, police reports that came from that house that was used to build the case. That's all in here. Like I said, this police report is just like observations into the investigations that I'm assuming detectives did, like just to watch the Palm Beach residence, because I'm guessing they had a feeling. So yeah, that's what a lot of this is as well. Right now I'm looking at what it looks like. Oh, points of arrival and departure. Aircraft category. Okay, so this also has, it also looks like there are, these aren't flight logs, but they kind of are. There's like, okay, this is where we're going, this is where we're coming from. You know what I mean? That's also what's on here. Let's see what these are. Oh, it looks like this is a call sheet, an address and telephone sheet from the Palm Beach residence. It has the telephone, fax number, address, email address of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, assistants, the property manager, engineers, computers. Wow, this is a lot. I'm sorry. What the fuck am I looking at right now? What the fuck am I looking at? Page 1162 through 1168 are redacted. And that is an interview with Ghislaine Maxwell. But yes, so I'm sorry, I got carried away there with more research. I'll probably do another video on this whole thing. If I'm being honest with you, this is so fucking interesting. But these documents mostly just contain email, like literal emails going back and forth between things. The interview between Ghislaine Maxwell and police detectives inside of the court, or not police detectives, lawyers versus Ghislaine Maxwell inside of the court system. They also contain medical records from some of the minors. They also include call sheets, information sheets, address books from Jeffrey Epstein's residences, police reports from observations made at the Palm Beach residence. What else? Like right here, what I have, this is page 771. This is Victims Refuse Silence Incorporated. I think this is when somebody tried to threaten a lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein. From what I understand, let me see even more. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that because I want to get way deep into this fucking rabbit hole in the middle of recording. So yeah, that's what these documents are. They're court documents, everything that was used in court against Ghislaine Maxwell. So like her interview, the transcription of her court, the police observation report, stuff like that. That's all in here. That's what this is. And now for the juiciest of juiciness, I couldn't find many people's names. I will not lie. But one that I did find was Prince Andrew. I'm going to read you some of the things about Prince Andrew. But a lot of it is scattered and it won't make sense if I just read it straight from here. So I'm going to summarize it and then read a piece of the interview here. So basically, Prince Andrew Ghislaine Maxwell is being asked about Prince Andrew, and Ghislaine Maxwell was asked if Prince Andrew has ever been to the island, and Ghislaine Maxwell says, well, yeah, and they were like, well, were any girls there? And she was like, well, no, actually, besides the crew and myself, like housekeeping, stuff like that, no females were on the island at all. And then she said something about like, did Prince Andrew ever meet this minor, like X name minor? And Ghislaine Maxwell's like, no, he has not. And bruh, there is a literal picture of Prince Andrew and this minor with Ghislaine Maxwell in it. Here, I'm gonna read you some of this interview. This is a court. I'm assuming this is in court because there's an objection happening. But this is from Miss Menninger, which I'm assuming is the prosecuting lawyer. Do you know whether blank, one of the minors, is telling the truth about Ghislaine Maxwell forcing her to participate in an orgy with Prince Andrew and other underage girls on the island? And then there was an objection, and then the witness says, no knowledge. So Ghislaine Maxwell told you to give a massage to Glenn Dubin or Dubin. No idea who that is, but I'm assuming he's a celebrity or a powerful person. Answer, correct. That's your testimony. That's my testimony. All right. Ghislaine Maxwell told you to give a massage to redacted. Correct? Correct. Ghislaine Maxwell told you to give a massage to Prince Andrew. Correct? Correct. Ghislaine Maxwell told you to give a massage to Bill Richardson. Correct? Correct. When did Ghislaine Maxwell tell you to give a massage to Bill Richardson? I don't know the dates. So now we're going to pick up mid-conversation of another question. When I first walked in the door, it was just myself, and Ghislaine headed for the staircase and told me to come up to the living room. And what happened at that point when you came up to the living room? I came up and I saw Virginia, Jeffrey, Prince Andrew, Ghislaine in the room. And did you meet Prince Andrew at that time? Yes. And what happened next? At one point, Ghislaine told me to come upstairs, and we went into a closet and pulled out the puppet, the caricature of Prince Andrew, and brought it down. And there was a little tag on the puppet that said Prince Andrew on it. And that's when I knew who he was. And what did that puppet look like? It looked like him. She brought it down and presented it to him, and that was a great joke because apparently it was a production from the show BBC, or from a show on BBC, sorry. And they decided to take a picture with it in which Virginia and Andrew sat on a couch. They put the puppet on Virginia's lap, and I sat on Andrew's lap. And they put the puppet's hands on Virginia's breasts, and Andrew put his hands on my breast. And they took a photo. Do you remember who took the photo? I don't recall. So, I don't want to say anything else. I'm just going to say that the document speaks for itself. And like I said, this document is available to read right now. On my document, it's on page 541 through 542. So go ahead and read it. One more thing I would like to say is that these are way out of order. I don't know if I said this already, but the interviews for this thing are so far out of fucking whack. For example, this interview picks up on page 21, right? So for example, it has page 21 and then 22 and then page 141, 142, 143, 150, 151, 159. There's a lot of missing information here. I'm not sure if it's missing on purpose or if that everything that was scanned in is just out of order. I don't know. I haven't dug through enough and paid attention to the numbers enough. But yeah, that's what's on this document or these documents, these 2024 pages, is medical records, police investigation reports, Q&As from the courts, emails back and forth, address books, contact books, flight logs, stuff like that. I know that was kind of confusing. All the information here is very jumbled, so I couldn't really give you a straightforward answer of what this is exactly. But, you know, I tried my best, and I hope my best was good enough. But I'm going to investigate this even more, and I want to read the entire thing in its entirety because it's kind of fucking nuts. And more than likely we'll make another video, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it'll be enough information here to make another video. But yeah. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you learned a little something about Jeffrey Epstein. And I look forward to making more videos. And I hope that my stuff comes because there's literally nothing here. Like I said, we just moved here. I have nothing. There's nothing here. So yeah. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.